With me now, Ann Applebaum, staff writer for The Atlantic and the author of the piece just out this morning, America's Future is Hungry. And I want to begin with what the president says he's not joking about. Why is it so difficult for people to believe he might be serious about seeking a third term?
Because we've all become very complacent about our Constitution, about the rule of law. We just assume these things will last because they've always lasted. And the idea that a president would actively seek to break the law and destroy the Constitution still seems incredible to Americans. And yet we have a president who's breaking the law every day and abolishing programs mandated by Congress every day. Nevertheless, this radical change in our politics is something I think people are just overwhelmed by and can't accept.
That's why your piece, I felt, was so striking. I mean, it's out this morning, and in it, you talk about how one person who changed the Constitution to stay in power is Hungary's autocratic leader, Viktor Orban. And in your piece, you write about how much MAGA leaders admire him. What is it about him that they find so appealing?
I think what they find appealing about Orban is that he's someone who was democratically elected. He was a legitimate leader of Hungary. But when he won election for the second time, he was very determined never to lose again. And so he set about undermining, reshaping, destroying all kinds of Hungarian institutions, from the judiciary to the media to the civil service to the universities. I think they particularly admire the way he actually destroyed a university. He did all kinds of bureaucratic changes to make the other universities essentially loyal to him so that he could have influence over faculty and programs. All those things are people who are power hungry and who dream of locking in the presidency and locking in the US government for good, see that and they find something admirable. You know, Viktor Orban set up a kind of one-party state. It's very difficult for him to lose an election. And that's what they want too. And they're not actually all that, not all that shy about saying it. And you heard Steve Bannon in the clips you've just played more or less that.
And one of the things that struck me is the idea of the laws that were changed to make conduct that people would initially find illegal now to be in line with what he has changed the laws to talk about. And you write about how that America is spinning quickly in the direction of Hungarian populism, Hungarian politics, and Hungarian justice. But that means Hungarian stagnation, Hungarian corruption, and Hungarian poverty lie in our future too. So what kind of impact has Orban's rule actually had on his country?
This is very rarely looked at. A lot of people have written about Orban's language about immigrants, about his defiance of the European Union, about his role trying to court Trump and other European far-right political leaders and political parties. Not that many people look at what actually happened in Hungary. And what happened in Hungary is that it became one of the poorest countries in the European Union. It's stagnating, very poor healthcare, very poor education. A lot of Hungarians leave the country, especially educated Hungarians. There's a problem in some Hungarian hospitals because so many doctors have wanted to leave. It's a stagnant country. There's about between a fifth and a quarter of the Hungarian economy is now dominated by companies who have direct links to the prime minister. Many of them are led by his family members. His son-in-law has become particularly wealthy, but other members of his family have as well. Those are companies that exist because of their relationship with the state. They're not entrepreneurial. They don't have normal business practices. That's a big weight on the economy. And also the gradual deterioration of the rule of law scares off other companies. People who really want to do business or want to make money stay away from Hungary because of the corruption, of the political pressure. You can't really exist there even as a foreign company unless you have some crony-ish relationship with the state and with the ruling party. And over time, over a decade, that's taken a real toll on the Hungarian economy. And in Hungary, a lot of those changes have been restricted or mitigated by the European Union, by other international institutions. I mean, those are things that we don't even have here in the United States.
It's striking, and people would be very prudent to read this and really reflect on, be careful what you wish for and who you admire if you don't look past the initial personality and the impact on the country instead. Ann Applebaum, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
if you were allowed, for some reason, to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you?
I'd love that.
For his third term?
Boy, I'd love that. That would be a good one. I'd like that. No, people are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a third term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years, just about, almost close to 4 years. Time is flying, but it's still close to 4 years, and we're getting a lot of credit for having done a great job in the first almost 100 days.
President Trump's second term has barely started, and he's already floating the possibility of a third one, even though the U.S. Constitution forbids it. Trump telling NBC News this weekend, quote, there are methods by which he could do it, and that he's, quote, not joking. The 22nd Amendment is very clear. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Where is this wiggle room that Trump is seeing?
Well, Bree, you're exactly right. Lawyers love wiggle room and escape hatches, and here they're looking at the word elected. So here's the argument. It's fringy, but the 22nd Amendment says nobody should be elected president more than twice. Well, the theory is, well, then maybe what Donald Trump or any two-term president can do is run as vice president with, let's say, J.D. Vance at the top of the ticket. If they win, J.D. Vance resigns, Donald Trump becomes president. The argument is that, well, that wouldn't be getting elected. That would be becoming president through the line of succession, ascending to the presidency. So now the biggest problem with this, of course, though, is earlier in the Constitution. The 12th Amendment tells us that any person who's ineligible to be president is also ineligible to be vice president. So you would think that ends the question. That seems pretty straightforward. There is a very fringy, extreme school of thought that the 12th Amendment doesn't quite close the door on this, but I think those advocates are trying to thread a needle that is not threadable.
A little too cute by half there. So Trump said in addition to the J.D. Vance option, there are others too. That's a quote. What are they?
Well, the most straightforward option, it's completely unrealistic, but we can always amend the Constitution. I mean, we have done that 27 times in our history. It's virtually impossible in today's political landscape. In order to amend the Constitution, there's two ways to do it. One, we can convene a series of statewide constitutional conventions. That's never happened. That's not going to happen. Two, maybe equally as unlikely, you would have to get a 2/3 vote in the House of Representatives, a 2/3 vote in the U.S. Senate, and then 3/4 of the states, 38 of the 50 states, would have to ratify that. So in theory, you could do that, but there's a 0.00% chance of that happening in reality.
First, just want to get your reaction to these new comments from the president.
Well, he likes constitutional end runs. That's what Bannon was talking about. And that's what seems to be on his mind, is how he can get around the very clear language of the 22nd Amendment, which precludes getting reelected to more than 2 terms.
And President Trump said, I have other methods. What could those constitutionally be?
They'd have to be written by the Supreme Court that would redefine the Constitution. As I say, I describe it as a constitutional end run. Jessica, this is not a new debate. It actually goes back to a Law Journal article in 1999, where a bunch of scholars got together and looked at the 22nd Amendment and said, you know, maybe a president cannot be reelected twice, but maybe he can serve twice. How does he serve twice? He becomes a vice presidential candidate. Then the vice president steps aside and makes him the president under the succession statute. This is really obtuse. This is it is pretty good scholarship. It's been debated for a lot of years. Hillary Clinton looked at it when she was nominated, thinking maybe her husband, former president, should be her vice president. But then she realized, well, he's not really eligible to become president under my reading and most readings of the 22nd Amendment. So she precluded that. A lot of people thought Obama should go for another term. He didn't. He read the Constitution and said, no, I'm not for end runs.